Okay, hi everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, and back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast. We're on a roll this week, keeping it going today with music director and conductor Charles Latshaw from the Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra, and he's also music director at the Grand Junction Symphony Orchestra in Colorado, where they have a opening show coming up this weekend. And I want to give Charles an opportunity to talk about that. Charles, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, David. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, totally my pleasure. And I knew as soon as I met you on Facebook that we were going to get along just great, because both of our missions, it seems, are promoting the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world. And in my case, anyway, young means younger than me, which is just about everybody. But in your case, it might mean actually young kids, which is where we have to start. So why don't you tell us a little bit? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you got going on this weekend, and then we can explore how you got to be where you are.
Well, sure. Grand Junction Symphony has our season opener this weekend. And, where I hope to talk a bunch about new music, and I try to have a living composer on every single program is a really strong goal of mine. However, the concert this weekend is about as traditional as it gets. It's a Rossini overture, Tchaikovsky piano concerto, and Beethoven 5. It's just 100% overture concerto symphony. And what's interesting, I've found in the last couple of years with both my orchestras, is that because we do a lot of new music, every once in a while having a concert that fits that 100-year-old format of just overture concerto symphony is extremely refreshing for the musicians. Because in a way, we don't have to learn the notes. Instead, we can just focus on being the best possible musicians we can be, and cleaning up and working on being a great ensemble. So that's a very fun way to start off the season right now. We had our first rehearsal last night, and it was one of the best first rehearsals we've had in a long time, partly because everything is so familiar to the orchestra that it means we can really, really get into the details, which is great. And then in 2 weeks, Flagstaff has our opening season, and we're doing also an overture concerto symphony concert, but a little bit different in that the symphony is the Janáček Sinfonietta, which is just an enormous piece with 12 trumpets and 4 trombones and 2 bass trumpets and 2 euphoniums and triple woodwinds. Just a huge orchestra. So while Janáček is not a living composer, at least he's one who shows up a whole lot less often, and I'm excited to show off Janáček in that program. So yeah, it's a busy time of the year to get started with both orchestras.
That sounds good. How do you balance that? That must be quite a bit of a good trick to balance that.
It is. I've been very fortunate. This is my 10th season with Grand Junction Symphony and my 9th with Flagstaff. So for the last 8 years, there's only been one schedule conflict in 8 years between the two orchestras, which it is kind of amazing. And it's because I think per service orchestras around the country, we end up sort of occupying specific weekends of every month that we know. In Grand Junction, for instance, our opening week in September is that second weekend in September. And in Flagstaff, it tends to be the fourth week in September. And so that's worked out really well. The trouble is, how the calendar sort of shifts by a day every year, because there are an odd number of days in the year. And so once every 7 years, one of the orchestras will have to jump a week in order to make things work. But generally, it's been all right. The only time it gets really challenging is in the holiday season, because right now, this is getting really deep into music director planning weeds, right now, because Thanksgiving is always the fourth Thursday of November, but sometimes there are 5 Thursdays in November. From now until 2028, there are only 4 Thursdays in November, and it's in the very last possible day or two of November, which means there are really only 2 viable performance weekends between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So programming the Nutcracker in one town and programming holiday pops in the other, and also trying to be available for various guest conducting gigs. There's been a crunch. From 2024 through 2028 will be the next time that there are 3 viable weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So yeah, it's quite a juggling act to keep all of that going. I do not program the same works with both orchestras because they're two very different orchestras and two very different audiences that react to music differently, both from a performer standpoint and from an audience standpoint. So every program is tailored to the orchestra.
That's great.
That I'm working with.
Yeah. What would you say are the differences between the two audiences?
Well, Grand Junction is a little bit geographically isolated. We're on the western side of Colorado, so it's a 4.5 hour drive to Denver if we were to drive east, but the Rocky Mountains are in between, and there are avalanches and things every summer that close major highways, and about 5 hour drive to Salt Lake City in the other direction. So the folks in Grand Junction don't have a lot of other opportunities to hear orchestral music. It means that I try to cultivate as wide a variety of orchestral music as possible with the Grand Junction Symphony, because if we're not playing it, then our audience isn't hearing it anywhere else. So what we found is anything we can get the audience to come to listen to, they're going to enjoy, as long as we play it well and present it with enthusiasm and excitement about it. But sometimes the programming needs a little extra hook in order to pull folks in. So last year when we played The Planets, I also put in John Williams' Adventures on Earth from E.T. And I want to say when we hear from ticket buyers saying what they're excited about for that concert, it's 50-50 between the John Williams and the Gustav Holst. I also put in that program a piece by Missy Mazzoli called Sinfonia for Orbiting Spheres. So had two living composers in there with a Gustav Holst. People came to hear either the E.T. or the Planets, but they also got a piece of new music in there that, Mazzoli's Sinfonia has some really, really neat effects with 10 harmonicas making this sort of ethereal sound and electronica and stuff mixed in. So that's Grand Junction. I don't shy away from doing, major works. We're playing Beethoven 5 this weekend. Next month it's Mahler 1, but we pair them with new stuff. And I never tell the audience that a new piece is new in Grand Junction, unless it's a world premiere. If we have the composer there and it's a world premiere, we make a big deal out of it. But I don't want to ever sort of segregate in people's minds new music and old music. It's all music, and we try to present really good music, play it very well, and find that people like it. Even if they don't know the difference between Bach and Bartok, we can put those two side by side and they'll find that they like it. In Flagstaff, it's a little bit different. I still try to do as much new music as possible, but we do make a bigger deal out of it being new music. Flagstaff is very much a college town because of Northern Arizona University there in the town. The audience in the way it feels to me is the audience wants to be a little bit more proud of themselves for bringing new works into the repertoire, for being sort of bold and expansive of collaborations, multimedia kind of things, etc. And it's partly driven because Flagstaff's arts community has annual awards that they award to various arts organizations for performances and collaborations and educational programs. And I won't say we're chasing those awards, but it shapes the audience's mindset in the kinds of things that they're looking for. So if we're going to play Mendelssohn, for instance, a couple of years ago, we did a production of Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream, where we collaborated with the local Shakespeare company, did an abridged version of the play with all of Mendelssohn's music, with the women's chorus that's written for and the two soprano soloists, and we added the ballet company and all of the instrumental numbers that's interstitial music for the play. We had the ballet dance with that. That kind of multimedia collaborative sort of thing goes over extremely well in Flagstaff, and for some reason in Grand Junction it doesn't. So they're just different audiences, different crowds, different orchestras, different organizations really require different thinking about what we perform.
Yeah, it's all very good and informative, and nice to hear that you're so on top of all of that too. I think a lot of people who go into conducting that I've met so far do it as something that happened in their life that was like an event that said, that's what I want to do. I know that you were a great trumpet player. You probably started young. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I'm guessing at some point you probably had one of those aha moments too, that you wanted to be on the podium. Was that true, or? something
Very
else.
specifically, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, my undergraduate degree was in music education and on the trumpet. And after I graduated from Ohio State University as an undergraduate, I did teach in public schools for a few years in New Hampshire. And I was playing trumpet in a few regional per service orchestras around New England area. And very specifically, I was in a rehearsal of the Nashua Chamber Symphony, which no longer exists, counting rests in the third movement of Mozart's Hafner Symphony. That's the 35th. It's D major symphony. And just sort of going, dude, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2,
Yeah.
3, and then 76, 2, 3, 77, 2, 3, bum, bum,
Uh-huh.
1, 2. And I just thought, gosh, this isn't really what I thought I was going to be doing with a career in music. And I looked around the room and I realized at that moment that I really should have been a cellist. But at the time when I was in fifth grade and we had the instrument fitting day, the only instrument I had ever heard of back then was the trumpet. And they put a trumpet in my hands and said, "You're a trumpet player." So I went and rented a cello the next day and spent a summer 8, 9 hours a day playing the cello, which completely changed the way I thought about music and the way I heard music and the way I thought about expression. And at the same time, I was auditioning for graduate schools for conducting, and I got admitted to Indiana University for my master's degree. I want to tell people who are young conductors out there and looking for, going to grad school. It took me 3 tries to get into Indiana. I was denied an audition twice. On the third time, I did get an audition, and they accepted me on the wait list. So my admission letter didn't come until it was almost August 1st. It was late in the summer. And I had already been offered a job. I was working as an actor in New Hampshire, as an actor and singer. And I'd been offered on a job to go for a year on tour with a show called Forever Plaid. It was a 4-man show.
Oh, I remember that show. Absolutely.
That we were going to do, a whole
Absolutely.
national tour for a year. And I had a decision to make between conducting or acting. And my wife and I went for a hike. We climbed a mountain in New Hampshire, Mount Franconia, highly recommended for those of you who hike in New Hampshire. And we were up on Franconia Ridge, and I was going back and forth. Well, I could go work, and make a decent amount of money for a year on tour with a show, but who knows what's going to happen after that? Or I could, get into grad school. And finally, my wife said, quit being an idiot, go to grad school, go be with an orchestra. You've worked so hard to get there, and go do that. So things went very well for me after that, and Indiana turned out to be the absolute perfect school for me to go to, because I had such an eclectic background as a trumpet player and as a singer and as an actor and as a teacher, that Indiana being such an enormous school of music, there was so much going on all the time that I could soak up the best of every bit of it. And it's turned me into the very eclectic kind of conductor that I am now.
Yeah. How much did that acting training help you in conducting?
A lot. One of the important things about conducting is every piece that I'm conducting has to be my favorite piece in the whole wide world while I'm conducting it. Now, I'm fortunate that I have 2 music director positions, so almost every piece that we're performing is something that I've selected for the orchestra to play. We don't play a lot of things that I don't really believe in. And acting helps a lot with that background in learning how to invest yourself emotionally. And I don't want to, it's hard to say acting it out for the orchestra because it sounds like I'm denigrating the conducting profession, but there is a certain amount of acting, or at least pantomime, or at least dance, or something like that to get your ideas across to the orchestra. Yeah. So that's been very important. And it also makes a huge difference with interacting with the audience. I'd say my experience, teaching in public school, I was teaching junior high general music for a couple of years. And if you can talk to a classroom of 38th graders who are in your general music class because they're disinterested in any kind of music performance, then there will never be an audience that's going to frighten you or intimidate you. Yeah. And so being able to turn back and forth between the orchestra and the audience and sort of be conscious of those 2 groups of people in a performance, I think a lot of that comes from the acting background, and I'm very glad for having had that experience.
Yeah, and it reminds me, I think it was something I learned in undergrad from a psychology class, which was along the lines of, if you say things, if you act things, then the feelings follow, actually. So it's not a matter of faking it. It's actually a cycle that's reinforcing the belief in it, where the
I
feelings
agree.
then reinforce the actions, and the actions reinforce the feelings. So I think that's all cool. What kind of things are you doing for summer programs, or did you do this summer for young people? And what's your goal with those?
I spent a couple of weeks in Fresno as part of the Fresno Orchestra and Opera Summer Academy. That's run by Thomas Lovenheim, who works at Fresno State. They created a second orchestra for the first time this summer. So I was there working with students, I want to say from age, the youngest were 6, I think.
Nice.
I think the age minimum was 7, but we had a couple of kids who squeaked in because they were tall enough to reach the floor.
They had a
when
fake
they sat in
ID
a
and they
chair.
got in with a 7. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I was working with students basically from age 7 to about age 23 or so. That's a huge wide range. But, the wonderful thing about it is when you let's say we put together an orchestra that played Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony and parts of Dvorak's Eighth Symphony. When you put together a group of students based on ability level and not based on age, what you find is that the 10-year-old who's sitting next to the 18-year-old is learning an incredible amount. The 18-year-old is intimidated by the 10-year-old who plays every bit as well as they do, and they want to, bring up their level. It turned out to be a thrilling and exciting experience. So that was really great. Before I took my jobs with Grand Junction Symphony and Flagstaff Symphony, I was teaching, I was director of orchestras at Kent State University in Ohio, and also ran the Kent Blossom Music Festival, which is a chamber series that's a collaboration between the Cleveland Orchestra and Kent State, where that was, it was undergrads and graduate students who have a certain level of excitement and a certain level of expectations, I think, of what we expect them to do in order to survive a career in music. It was very, very thrilling and exciting, and in many ways refreshing to go work with younger students again who are doing it really for the love of music. Some of them think they might be music majors in the future, and some of them are just doing it because they love it. And that's great, and a very different kind of motivation, and it means that I can look at the music differently too, and think about, what's in this music that makes us fall in love with being musicians, and let's bring that out and let's really cherish that.
Yeah. Do you manage to stay in touch with any of those young students over the years?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's, it's sometimes when I'm cynical about the music director job, sometimes I think, well, we had a fantastic concert. We entertained 1,400 people this weekend, but that's sort of the end of it. But when I was teaching, I was always thinking about the future. These students are going to go on and be musicians, to be in orchestras around the world, to be teachers of future students. And I was very cognizant of that. So yeah, I check in with a lot of them, because I care about them and I want to make sure they're doing well. But also I'm interested in what kind of new projects they're up to. One, for example, Sammy Holloman finished her doctorate in flute recently. She's teaching at a university, I want to say in Missouri, but I see her popping up on Facebook doing things for her students, doing things with her class studio that are very innovative and really exciting. And so now it's a thrilling experience to be somebody who's learning new ideas from their former students. That's a really great cycle and feedback.
That's great. Speaking of new projects, what can you tell us about what you might have planned for, let's say, after the holidays, after the Nutcracker is all over, 2026? What are you up to?
Sure. Well, we can talk about some new music projects. I've got 2 collaborations I'm working on right now with a composer named Benjamin Taylor. Ben, he saw some of my videos. One of my hobbies is drone photography and drone videography, and I sell a lot of stock video of landscapes. I'm very fortunate to live in Colorado and work in Arizona, and my drive between here, between Colorado and Flagstaff includes places like Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park and Monument Valley and the Grand Canyon and the whole Navajo Reservation.
Can't beat that.
So I'm very fortunate to live in these fantastic wild landscapes. So Benjamin saw some of the things that I had been posting on Facebook of videos of flying drones up and down mountains and exciting things like that. And he said, let's do a piece together. It was a consortium he put together actually for high school bands to write a new piece that's called Chasing the Horizon, where he wrote the music and I scored film to go with the music instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
And the scoring of the film with the music was a very collaborative process. I think in much the same way that a film director would make the film first and then work with a composer to make sure the music is going to fit and convey the feelings that they were after. It was a very fun project where I sent Ben about 9 hours of footage, and this is footage cut up into 10-second clips, just hundreds and hundreds of different clips, and said, take whatever is inspiring to you, write a piece, then we're going to make a video to go with it. So I think he had about a dozen high school bands signed up on that project to commission the piece. It's been premiered this past spring along with the video, and we have found ways to cut the video in a way that the video playback can be altered to fit the performance, on varying tempos and fermata lengths and things like that. And then I'm in the process about halfway through right now of reorchestrating this piece that Ben wrote for band to be premiered by the Grand Junction Symphony later this season. So very thrilled about that project. I've been reluctant for quite a while to feature any of my videos with our orchestra because I don't want to churn our concerts into the Charles show. I don't want, I don't want orchestra concerts to be about the conductor. But this one is going to end up in a program of all American music that we've got Benjamin's piece there with the Victor Herbert Second Cello Concerto and the Bernstein West Side Story dances. So it's a really thrilling concert where the part that I feel like is too much about me is only 6 minutes or so. And Benjamin and I just got a grant from the Barlow Foundation, which comes from Brigham Young University, to commission a brand new piece with Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra for next year. And we haven't started into that, but it's going to be a similar project, I think, where I'm going to select all photography of the Flagstaff region. 2026 turns out to be the 250th birthday of America. It's also the 100th anniversary of Route 66, which goes right through Flagstaff, Arizona. So the piece may have a lot of Americana kind of stuff in there, but I want to be as free as possible with commissioning a composer and say, write the piece you want to write. And if you're inspired by these anniversaries, if you're inspired by Flagstaff itself, great. If none of those things appeal to you and you just want to write a great piece that will sort of attach a Flagstaff thing to, that's great too. I want the composer to have the freedom they want. So that's 2 new projects coming up, one to be premiered this spring and another one next fall, at least as far as new music is concerned.
Well, you're a busy person, but as they say, when you want something done, you give it to a busy person. So there
that's right. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Charles,
they're busy because they take on projects and they do them. Yeah.
That's it. Charles, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
My website is easy to find. My name is Charles Latshaw, so charleslatshaw.com is easy enough. That LATSHAW. Or either of the symphony websites, gjso.org or flagstaffsymphony.org, are great opportunities to get in touch.
Charles, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We're going to listen to some more of the great music you've conducted on the way out here. And if there's anything we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of help to you, just let us know.
Thanks so much, David.